back to talknorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. This is the Viking Update show. So, yes, we talk about Vikings. So, yes, when I watch the AFC NFC Championship games, I do so with the Vikings somewhat in mind, no matter what's happening. And, Tim, it's just really sad to see the New Orleans Saints have, like, some officials' calls go against them.
Man, I tell you what, Vikings Twitter was lighting up yesterday with, karma-type tweets. And, it's a tough way for the Saints to go out 2 years in a row with the Minneapolis Miracle and then just really a terrible non-call on that pass interference. And I'm to the point where I want that to be reviewable. For that to determine a game is kind of unforgivable. I don't necessarily want officials to have to go to a replay all the time, but there should be somebody in New York watching that and saying, especially in the playoffs, and saying, that's pass interference, call it. Because that was also a game ender right there. I mean, they score there and they win. So I really think that things should be reviewable like pass interference.
I think everything. If you're going to review things, then review everything and have your best official in the booth where they have the 85 camera angles and they can make a call and make sure everything gets right. Including the roughing call on the Chiefs where a guy really didn't touch Brady's helmet, but the official who has to make that call is in a terrible position. We put too much on these officials. And of course, my corollary to that is if Sean Payton runs the ball 3 times, kicks the field goal, the Saints win. He put himself in a position where he needed that call, and he outsmarted himself about 18 different times. And that's what I found most enjoyable is Sean Payton's a very good coach. He's also an egomaniac who thinks he's a genius. And I'm trying to need to find a polite word. He jobbed his own team about half a dozen times yesterday.
Well, and, we always look at things at the end of games. And yes, I think he did try to outsmart himself by throwing the ball, but Breeze also threw a poor pass low.
Which can happen when you call a pass play.
Yep, absolutely. And, earlier in the game, too, I thought there was too much emphasis on using Taysom Hill and trying to, make him your cute playmaker that other people don't have. And, I agreed with the analyst saying, you're taking the ball out of Drew Brees' hands, and why would you ever want to do that, especially in such an important game?
Exactly. And let's talk about more NFL stuff, but let's hit some Vikings topics here real quickly. This is Viking Update show. This is part of TalkNorth.com. It's one of our 2 NFL-related shows. Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider gives you a perspective of a former NFL Executive of the Year, former president of the Tennessee Titans, the one time they went to the Super Bowl. This is our more Viking-centric show, but we, of course, branch out into NFL topics and a little bit of goofiness as well. And if you don't know who we are or you're just getting used to this show, we've combined for about 50 years of Viking coverage between us. Yes, we're old, but we're also experienced. If you'd like to advertise with us, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. Please download before you listen and follow us on Talk North Pod to see live show information, sponsor deals, all that kind of stuff. Thanks to our sponsors who we are currently working with: Twill in the Edina Galleria, Mississippi Pub in Inver Grove Heights, Beaver Island Brewing, VixologyRepair.com, and Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin. This is unusual. You got to see Matt Birk doing a comedy routine. Now, occasionally we got to see Matt Birk doing a comedy routine in the locker room. He's actually doing them in public now.
Yeah, it was really interesting. He held it as sort of a benefit for Mike Ditka's Gridiron Greats and the Impact Fund, which helps NFL alumni that are going through hard times because of health-related issues related to the NFL and their playing days. But Burke was really good. He had 4 comics, including himself. A couple of them kind of semi-professionals that have been on, HBO or Comedy Central and things like that. But Birk let it off, and just, as he's got a great dry sense of humor, and he was the same way up on stage. Looked completely comfortable, mostly just poking fun at, his big family, talking about having 2 adopted kids, and therefore, as an NFL player, he can say he has 3 baby mamas, which I thought was pretty dang funny because his wife was in the crowd, and he's pulling out that joke, and then he says, but then my wife turns to me and says, well, I got 3 baby daddies, and that's just not right, the whole thing. Birk just did an excellent job, and then he walked around. It was at a craft house in Egan, so it was probably maybe a couple hundred people that they had room for, and he walked around every table throughout as other people were doing their stand-up routines, and just put on a great event. So if he ever does that again, I would encourage people to get in on it. It was, it was well worth the money, and just good to see him out there doing it.
He's a funny dude. He can probably do a lot of different things with this. Remind me, what's he doing right now? Is he still working for the NFL?
No, I don't think he's doing that anymore. I didn't have a ton of time to talk to him. I actually basically walked in with him because we both arrived at the same time. But he's talked to other comics. He's not really looking to make this a career, but I think he enjoys doing it, and he's really good at it. I think he's just kind of getting work here and there and enjoying raising his family. It's I think it's
which
8 kids
takes a lot of time. It's 8. Well, 8 as of the time of our taping. We can update that later today if we need to. It might be up to 12 or something by now.
Yeah,
I just don't know why. I just don't. I don't understand why he needs to compete so wholeheartedly with Philip Rivers. I mean, why can't they just call a truce?
I don't even know what that reference is regarding.
Philip Rivers has like 85 kids too. It's like,
yeah.
It's like right. Every Sunday. It's like you watch the pregame shows on Sunday. Oh, we want to congratulate Philip Rivers again.
Yeah. Well, I think Birk should do some. I mean, the photos I've seen of the Philip Rivers family kind of are bordering on some awkward family photo moments, and so I think Birk would be great at doing those too. He is tremendous at poking fun of himself, as he did, on Saturday night several times. And so, like I said, I just encourage people to go out and see it. And, I reminded him of what I thought was really one of the funniest lines I've ever heard in a Vikings locker room, which was, after the whole Love Boat scandal, Birk telling reporters that he thinks the whole thing was an affront to Minnesota prostitutes since they had to ship them in from Atlanta. So
that's the greatest line ever. What's wrong with Minnesota's prostitutes? Why do you have to bring them in from another city?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that one, but actually
I do.
I really think that is my favorite line that I've ever heard in a Vikings locker room.
It's fantastic. God, it's fantastic. All right. You know what? Let's talk about some actual football stuff. One last Birk question. Is he stout offensive lineman body, or is he like sculpted, embarrass us all with his abs body right now?
Well, and he made fun of that too, because he did. I'm sure most Vikings fans listening to this have seen the social media posts he did. Within like 6 months of being out of the NFL, he looked like he could have been a bodybuilder, and he's still fairly ripped, but he's not at that point. So he was making fun of his body, which is funny in a bar where you got 100 guys that are all 20, 30 pounds overweight, and he's making fun of his body. So, no, he's in great shape, and, both physically and mentally, which should be noted after a long career. And, he started it out by introducing himself as a former Viking and Super Bowl champion, 2 things that don't go together very often. And I think that was actually the only rip that he had on the Vikings, which kind of surprised me. It was mostly just poking fun at himself, his body, the NFL in general, and his family. So it was a good time.
two more Birk memories before we get moving here. First of all, I was talking to him on the phone a lot when he first retired. We were just, I was starting out the podcast. He was a guest a bunch of times. We just were kind of more in communication. And, I saw the pictures. I asked him about it. He said, yep, that's really me. I decided I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to rip. So I called him like a few months later, and he'd started working in the NFL, and he was walking around. And he was like, I called him, and he was walking into a deli in New York. I said, well, so you're still like on your program, right? You're still ripped and everything. He said, no, a guy's got to eat. I mean, he's like, he couldn't work in New York and not go to the deli. Come on. And the other thing I remember is one of my favorite things I ever did in my sports writing career is he was holding out from the Vikings. It was clear that he and Childress didn't like each other, and Childress was kind of making some allusions at the podium about Birk's, I hope he's staying in shape. I don't know. And so Birk wouldn't do an interview with me about the holdout, but he would do an interview with me like about his workout routine. But then he said, if you want to do an interview with me, you got to come work out with us. So I went out to Mike Morris's gym. It was me, Morris, and Matt Birk. I went through their routine. Yes, I used much less weight than they did, but did the whole combination of explosive, plyometric, weightlifting. Then I had to pull Matt Birk's truck with Matt Birk in it across the parking lot and back. I threw up. Then I went back and I finished the workout, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever done because they did push me like crazy, but I also got to get a sense of what these guys put themselves through to be able to play that game.
And how were you walking around days after that workout?
I was in decent shape at the time, and I'm built for a kind of endurance. So the challenge for me has always been like, I'm not going to be able to lift the kind of weights that real athletes lift, but I can go through workouts. So it really, once I threw up, I felt great. I could have kept going on. So, I can get through a workout. It was just the fact that I was using baby weights while they're using like 85-pound dumbbells for everything.
Well, and you probably had plenty of practice at the bars too, throwing up and then going back to your regular routine, right?
Practice makes perfect, Tim.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get to Gary Kubiak. Do want to thank Twill in the Edina Galleria, our friend Scott Dayton's shop, of course, in the Edina Galleria in Edina, right there off France Avenue. I shop there all the time. I've spent my own money there. Check the place out.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
All right, to get to more crucial Viking topics, Gary Kubiak has been hired as an assistant head coach and offensive, basically, supervisor. Tell me how this is going to work and what all this means.
Well, I think it was a great hire for the type of offense that Mike Zimmer wants. Gary Kubiak, we know him from his days mostly in Denver and a lot too in Houston, where you're running a zone scheme, inside-outside zone runs, and really being effective in the running game. And when I went back and looked at all of his years as either an offensive coordinator or head coach and where his teams ranked in the running game specifically, the two things that stuck out to me is they were generally very efficient and they were always dedicated to running the ball, really up in the top half of the league in number of rushes, oftentimes in the top half in average per carry and that sort of thing. So his offenses were top 5 in rushing yards 10 times and top 10 in rushing yards 14 times in the 22 years that he was either an offensive coordinator or a head coach. And that, to me, is exactly what Mike Zimmer is looking for, much more dedication to the running game. And, throughout, especially the first half of the season, everybody was talking about how much of a passing league this had become and all that. But, I think we go and look at what Bill Belichick did in the AFC Championship game, and dedication to running the football can be a great way to, not only win playoff games, but keep really good quarterbacks off the field opposite of you. And so I think it should work together a little bit better with how the Vikings want things run. And I also don't